Not every argument against God should be answered.
Born, Canada. Destination, heaven.
And the author of Job.
Wow, all of this and more. The author of Job? All of this and more coming up next. Stay there. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Rod Hember.
I'm Janice.
And I'm Corey.
Hey, welcome to the Quick Study television program. It is great to have you here via television and via radio, via internet, via iPhone, iPad, Android, however you're seeing us. Welcome. It's good to have you here as we go through the Bible in 1 year. We'll tell you about the print companion to the program called the Quick Study Pocket Guide a little bit later on, so you can take the most important journey you'll ever take. Job. Chapters 18 to 21. What do we learn today? One of the things we learn is this, a very, very important lesson. First of all, not every argument against God should be answered. Sometimes we should just let it be. Job's friends didn't do that, and they horsed it all up. We'll talk about that and more later. We have Bible archaeology, which is what?
Well, we are exploring some of the claims, some of the histories behind the author of Job.
We could have a throwdown. The author of Job. Who did it? Who did it?
I'll be the ref.
All right.
Oh, okay.
We'll discuss that later on. All right, here we go.
Okay.
We have the Bible challenge.
What is Bildad? A Naamathite, a Temanite, or a Shuhite?
These are all ites, okay? Very interesting question. We know what Eliphaz was, but because of yesterday, but do we know what Bildad is? Do we know who we are?
Narrowing it down.
Yes, exactly. We are citizens of heaven, that's for sure. So all of this and more is coming up as we study this amazing book. Today our focus is chapter 18 to 21. Let's study on. It wasn't until the 19th century that science discovered all matter consists of invisible elements, very small particles not visible to the human eye. Atoms consist of electrons, protons, neutrons, all of which cannot be seen. Yet the Bible states that according to Hebrews 11 verse 3, everything is made from that which is invisible. A true statement from a book that's over 2,000 years old.
Did you know that there was a time not so long ago where our modern scholars didn't believe that writing even existed during the time period when Job is thought to have lived? They didn't think it was possible. But thanks to the very hard work of scholars and ancient archaeologists, we have found out that that assumption was completely wrong. That not only were there very complex writing systems that we can't even translate some of them today because we don't understand how they did it, it's so complex, but there was also legal systems and education systems. It's vast. Well, what you and I are going to take a look at right now is an ancient form of an education system, and hopefully that will restore some of our respect for these very intelligent ancient people. Taking examples from old Babylonian literature, we are able to learn much about ancient education, specifically the education of the scribe. Scribes were men with high positions in society. They were respected, and their level of education was widely acknowledged. These Babylonian scribes spoke, wrote, and read their common language Akkadian, and they were also required to learn, speak, and write the culture's scholarly language, Sumerian. They wrote translation dictionaries to become proficient in the languages. They had to learn business management. They studied economics, math, and law. Scribes were taught to be extremely precise, and once trained, were required to prepare various contracts for social transactions. In scribal education, there was even a tutoring system. The advanced students earned the nickname Big Brothers, as their new responsibility became helping the newer students succeed.
We are studying the book of Job. Bildad, Job's friend, so far, Job's so-called friend, they're at it again. The preacher of fire and judgment. He teams up with the prophet of condemnation to build a stronger case against Job as he desperately is seeking answers from God and suffering terribly. A noticeable separation is taking place between Job, who is learning directly from God and the spiritual world, and the preacher and prophet who are trying to defend their own theology. Elevation and separation between the two are more visible now in these passages of Job, that would be chapter 18 to 21, than even at the beginning of the book of Job.
Job chapter 18, verses 1 through 10. Then Bildad the Shuhite answered and said, "How long till you put an end to words? Gain understanding, and afterward we will speak. Why are we counted as beasts and regarded as stupid in your sight? You who tear yourself in anger, shall the earth be forsaken for you? Or shall the rock be removed from its place? The light of the wicked indeed goes out, and the flame of his fire does not shine. The light is dark in his tent, and his lamp beside him is put out. The steps of his strength are shortened, and his own counsel casts him down. For he is cast into a net by his own feet, and he walks into a snare. The net takes him by the heel, and a snare lays hold of him. A noose is hidden for him on the ground, and a trap for him in the road." Job chapter 18, verses 1 through 10.
A lot of people talk about theology. You know, theology is simply a word that means the study of God. Theos, of course, being God, and theology or ology being the study of. So it is bad theology and not true to say just because someone comes to Christ and obeys God, they will be financially rich and never have health problems. That's bad theology. It's just not true. Job's presence in the Bible helps us to understand that one of the ways Satan sends trials to the righteous is by rewarding the wicked. The parade and the taunt of the righteous while those serving God seems to be a struggle. But like Job, we must remember that the end is not like that. No, it's not. There will come a time, yes, there will, when Satan has no power, when Satan has no wealth, when Satan has no riches, and in this present darkness, we will have to wait till that time comes. But while we do, we will persevere because we are overcomers. Jesus is with us. The ministry of the cross of Jesus Christ is a ministry that transcends lifestyle, that transcends difficulty, transcends struggles. That's what the ministry of the cross is all about. No greater image of the ministry of the cross is in the Bible except here in Job, outside of the cross itself. This is interesting. We have the second rounds. Here's Job. We're looking at chapter 18, and let's look at the first two verses as we begin to study this for just a moment. It says, "Then Bildad the Shuhite answered Job and said, 'How long till you put an end to your words? Gain understanding, Job, and afterwards we will speak.'" Wow. This guy's intense. He is wrong. We must learn that not every argument against God should be answered. God can speak for himself. It was not necessary for Bildad to defend God. It was not necessary. Bildad's kind of setting up this idea where unless you really know what you're talking about, don't even bother to talk to God. God won't talk to you. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't even talk. The words you're saying are separating you and God, so he's not going to listen to you. God's going to get mad at you and turn around and say, no, God never does that. That's Bildad's idea. That is not the biblical idea. God says, through Paul, that he places us in times and places that men might grope for him in hopes that they might find him. Peter tells us that he is not willing that any perish. God is seeking that we seek him. No matter what we come to him with anger, whatever we come to him with, God is seeking the hearts of men. I am not afraid of any person who comes to God with rage and anger, because if they truly encounter God, that rage and anger is going to go away. I have that much belief in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Paul said, it is the power unto salvation. It's powerful. Now we move on to verse 4 in chapter 18. It says, you who tear yourself in anger, shall the earth be forsaken for you? Or shall the rock be removed from its place? Now it's important that we learn this. We must learn to suffer with those who suffer instead of preaching to them. I'll tell you the truth that oftentimes there are these ideas that come to us. We must preach at the people and anger them and shock them. We must tell them that the world is going to end on May 21st or whatever we must do. The world's going to, or something's going to happen, or unless they get right with God, he's going to storm them. We must beat on them. But maybe the way to do this is to live for Jesus and love them. Tell the truth, yes. Don't compromise on the truth. But not compromising on the truth also means not compromising on the truth of God's love for the world. Jesus did not come to rub it in. Beloved, Jesus came to rub it out. Look, there's people that I don't think should get into heaven. There's people that think I shouldn't get into heaven. That's not my business. Nor is it yours. That's God's business. Let's not get in his business that way. Let us follow him, not try to lead him. These men with Job tried to lead God. We end with this. The light of the wicked indeed goes out, and the flame of his fire does not shine. The light is dark in his tent, and his lamp beside him is put out. The steps of his strength are shortened, and his own counsel cast him down. For he is cast into a net for his own feet, and he walks into a snare. Well, thanks, Bildad. That really helped. The truth to live by, number 3, we must learn that sometimes the wicked seem to prosper and have unusual favor. But wait, let's finish it. That's Satan's present reward. I read the back of the book, the middle of the book, the beginning of the book, Genesis 3, 15 and 17, and everywhere I read in the book of the 66 books written by 40 authors over thousands of years, the divine Word of God, everywhere I read in the book, it tells me that he wins and I'm with him. So, beloved, may we remember that there is purpose in our pain. There's purpose in someone else's pain. What we need to do in the book of Job as we begin to work our way through this, and we're going to get to some very interesting passages in the next few days, is that God is teaching us how to act and respond in times of great crisis. May we listen.
Do you know who the traditional author of the book of Job is? It's Moses, believe it or not. The ancient traditions have always pointed to Moses as its author. Now, scholars have just guessed that Moses probably wrote this collection, this story of Job when he was living in Midian, before he came back to rescue Israel from Egypt, and before he wrote Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But there is no reason to doubt that. But if we are to take that seriously, we have to examine some of the issues that modern scholarship has come up when it talks about those first 5 books of the Bible being written by Moses. So here we go. If the Bible is what it claims to be, a collection of books recording the accurate history of the Hebrew people and their interactions with God and the world, then it is unquestionably the most unique book in human history. Due to this, it has come under direct scrutiny, and attempts to explain away much of its surprising accuracy and miraculous survival throughout time have been made. One such attempt says that Moses was not and could not be the author of the first 5 books of the Bible, that these were written much later by several different people. Admittedly, it is an amazing thing to think about ancient Moses writing and then Israel preserving these books right up until today. But where do the facts lie? Could Moses have written them, as the books themselves and all historical traditions claim? We find that Moses, trained with the elite of Egypt, would indeed have had extensive literary know-how, including the ability to read and write. So did Moses have time to compile such histories, 40 years living in the Sinai wilderness with his nation. As their leader, he would have access to all of their written family records and histories needed to construct Genesis. And importantly, Moses had motivation as the nation's leader to create for them a solid, tangible reminder of their identity and the laws of their God. Did Moses write the Pentateuch? We have no reason to doubt it.
The Quick Study Television Ministry is available on the internet and TV. To bring this program to you, it costs money and takes much work. We're supported exclusively by viewers just like you. There are no large grants or corporations supplying any funds or advertising to stay on the air. And we're asking you as a viewer to pray about becoming a supporter of this program. There are no schemes, no marketing plans here. The costs are simple and the need is basic. Every dollar counts. Those viewers who support monthly are making a statement about the Bible. They're saying that they believe it should be available in our culture today on television, radio, and the internet. Would you pray about becoming a partner? We need to hear from our viewers soon. If you pray, God will speak. To become a supporter, you can send to Quick Study, P.O. Box 456, Orangeville, Ontario, L9W5G2. In the United States, write to Quick Study, P.O. Box 150, Murrysville, Pennsylvania, 15668-0150. You can also call at 519-940-8338 or 724-733-8336. We'll be waiting for your call today. Thank you in advance for your prayerful support.
Strange but true. Places, people.
Ancient scribes record amazing truth. Ancient scribes record amazing truth. The book of Genesis records that there were large creatures created by God in the sea, in the skies, and even on the earth. The Sioux Indians tell of a large flying creature that was struck by lightning during a thunderstorm and fell from the sky. It had claws on its feet and wings, and the wings measured nearly 20 feet across. They call the monster the Thunderbird, but it matches precisely the description of the pterodon. So we're looking at Job, and I'm thinking about this. You know, it's never wrong to speak honestly and openly to God in our prayers. You know, God is never offended by honesty. When we are so afraid of God that we hide behind careful but dishonest words in our prayer, or we don't ask the questions that really trouble us in our prayers, why? We might offend God? No, we offend God because when we don't ask him the honest questions, we give place to Satan's fear instead of the fear of God. You see, the fear of God is not a fear of talking to him about what really troubles us. It's masking our emotions when we do that in prayer, but the fear of God is knowing that God will answer. It's knowing him enough to trust him to hear us, even in our emotions, and not hold against us because of his eternal mercy. It's amazing to me how many people are afraid of God in the wrong sense. They're afraid to talk to God. You know, it's kind of like the people in ancient Israel. Moses went to the mountain, they see the thunders, lightning. I mean, I would be afraid too. But they made a decision at that time, that generation did, and the decision was this. No, you talk to God because we're afraid of him. We don't want to deal with him. What that must have done to the heart of God when his people said, no, Moses, you talk to God. We don't want to deal with him. What agony that must have caused him. Because here we see that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. God desires to talk with us. He desires, he came out of heaven through Jesus to live with us, if you know what I mean. And so we've got to get past this idea that God is so reverent that you can't be honest with him. Yes, you have to be honest with him. And yes, you revere him, but you revere him out of love and knowing he's holy. And the fear of God is both honor and the fear of not being honest with God should be that which we think about. Interesting. And so we learned this in Job, Corey.
Yeah, and I remember facing a similar situation like that when I was younger. I think I was about 10 or 11, and one of my friends came to me speaking about how she was afraid to speak to God in her emotion. And in my young mind, that confused me so much because I couldn't understand how you could be so afraid of someone that died for you. Jesus, I remember telling her, Jesus loves us so much that he died for us. And so when someone dies for you, when you have that personal love, you're not afraid to approach them, you're not afraid to speak to them, but you do approach them in love, and you are careful the way you speak about them because you love them so much. You would never want to hurt them. You would never want to stab them in the back. You love them, and your love is provoked because they have loved you so much that they would give their lives to save you. And so it's with that person that you can be so utterly honest and yet so utterly respectful at the same time. And the fear of God is a respect. It's a respect and a love. It's not a hiding from. How do you hide from someone who loved you so much that they died for you?
One of the movies that I watched with my father about 4 or 5 years ago was a movie made in Hollywood called The Apostle. And the star in it was Robert Duvall. And what he did, he played a preacher, and the preacher had a youth pastor. And the youth pastor had an affair with the preacher's wife. And the youth pastor ran off, and they rejected the pastor, and the church voted him out. And Robert Duvall plays this conflicted pastor who is feeling abandoned by the church. And there's a whole story here. It's a very interesting movie. But I remember this one scene. He gets with God, and he starts yelling at God. And he says, "It's me. Why did you do this to me?" And I remember all night long he yelled at God. And Dad and I were watching it, and we just started crying because we thought, this is where so many people need to go when they come into situations that are wrenching them apart. They need to get alone with God and go here. And what a movie that was. I remember that specifically for that particular reason. So I encourage you to stay honest with God in your thoughts and your prayers. Stay honest with him. There's nothing you can really do. He's heard it all before. But trust me, God's heard it all. All right, let's go to the Bible. God knows the answer to this question, too. The Bible challenge, here it is.
What is Bildad? We talked about Eliphaz yesterday. Right. Is Bildad a Naamathite, a Temanite, or a Shuhite? What do you think?
I believe that Bildad was a Shuhite.
Well, Job 18 verse 1 says that indeed he was a Shuhite. We
Very
talked about
good,
this
Corey.
earlier. When you don't realize, when you've read through the scriptures and read through them, you don't at first think you know it, but then you put their names together and it just sounds right.
It sounds right. That's how I did. They was like, okay, wait, let's go through
Start rapping it. What we need to do is come up with a rap. That's what we need to do. A rap for the.
And you don't, but you don't even have to do that. Once you read and read it, it gets in there, even though you don't really. It's like listening to a song from years ago and you haven't heard it, and then all of a sudden you hear it and you know all the words.
And of course, 1/3 of the Bible's music, and that's why. Quickly, we have a question that comes in from Facebook. Here it is. We'll put it on the screen. Rachel, go ahead. And the question is this. How do you reconcile Esther marrying a Persian king when the law clearly speaks against pagan marriages? You have 30 seconds, Janice.
Oh, dear. No, I'm going to pass that to Corey.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
How about this?
I phoned a friend.
Okay, how about this? The law was breached at that time. They were in exile. And they couldn't even, the law said they had to worship at a temple. There was no temple. The temple was destroyed. So God made special provision at that time. And in God's special provision, it's not the perfect will of God, but sometimes God does things in time when it's the permissive will of God. And because of the permissive will of God in a very bad situation, what happened is Esther saved an entire nation. That's how we would answer that question. You know, I know a lot of people, they're dishonest with God. They're like, I don't want to, get too offensive in my prayer. And they kind of mock God. They see God as this super religiosity, big cathedral. I don't know where they get that from exactly, completely. Look, here's what I know. The God I know died on a cross. And it wasn't pretty. And there was no cathedral. There was no organ music. And there was no fancy gold. There was blood, His blood, which was shed for you and me. And He died on that cross because He loved us, you and me. He took our sins away from us, and as we accept Him, you and me, He gives us eternal life, you and me. So I invite you to come to Jesus so you and me can talk sometime in heaven. Come to Christ. You pray and you say, Lord, I believe you died on the cross and rose again, and today I make you my Lord. Come to Christ, you and me. If you're not in church this Sunday, why not? Join us at www.BibleDiscoveryTV.com. Click on Good Friends Church Service, and we'd be happy to have you. That's Good Friends Church Service at www.thestreamtv.com. Also, remember, we are at 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock service times in the morning.